Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, the U.S. and Iran reach a tentative deal to extend the ceasefire. The deal reached by negotiators includes the gradual opening of the Strait of Hormuz and starting nuclear talks.
I'm Mary Bruce at the White House with the details on this new tentative deal that's awaiting approval from President Trump and Iran's new supreme leader.
A suspected gas explosion and fire at a Dallas apartment complex. More than 100 firefighters on the scene after that massive blast. Chilling new details as residents fleeing the flames say that they heard cries and screams. Several people are still unaccounted for. Reported cases of the Ebola outbreak climb above 1,000.
I'm Faith Abube. I'll tell you about a team of at least 30 health professionals rushing from the U.S. to Kenya to set up a makeshift hospital for Americans exposed to the Ebola virus.
Federal prosecutors arrested Google engineer this week in the latest allegation of insider trading on prediction markets. Americans are spending billions of dollars wagering on culture, sports, politics, and war. In tonight's Prime Focus, our Aaron Katersky takes an in-depth look at how the markets and one tiny federal regulator are trying to keep up. Could President Trump be the face of a new $250 bill? That's what the administration is hoping. If it happens, it'll be the first time a living president's face appears on U.S. money. And why one major apparel company is suing a drag queen for $1.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We begin with a tentative deal between the U.S. and Iran. Hours after the two countries exchanged fire, negotiators say they're approaching an agreement that would allow the critical Strait of Hormuz to remain open. U.S. officials say the draft deal would extend the fragile ceasefire and reopen the strait within 60 days. But we've been here before, and those deals never came to be. The president has said he's in no hurry to sign an agreement, despite the repercussions for Americans while the strait remains closed. A new economic indicators today show Americans are digging even deeper into their savings, all while paying more for daily needs like gas and groceries. Inflation now reaching its highest level in 3 years. With details about Iran's enriched uranium and capacity for a nuclear weapon still being worked out, many are skeptical that we're on the precipice of peace. ABC's chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce leads us off from the White House.
Just hours after the U.S. and Iran traded strikes, American and Iranian negotiators tonight believe they're closing in on an agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But it still needs President Trump's sign-off.
I negotiate, they negotiate. They're very good negotiators. They're crafty. But in the end, we have all the cards.
According to U.S. officials, the president has been briefed on a draft agreement that would extend the current fragile ceasefire and see the strait reopen over the course of 60 days. Iran loosening its grip on the critical waterway as the U.S. pulls back its naval blockade on Iranian ports, buying time to start negotiating an end to the war. But this tentative agreement says nothing of what happens to Iran's nuclear program, the central issue in this war, and it follows weeks of whiplash and discussions of deals that never came to be. Sources say the U.S. has committed to discussing sanctions relief for Iran during the negotiation period, something the president has said was not up for discussion. But today, the Treasury Secretary not ruling it out. Just to be clear, is sanctions relief for Iran on the table?
It is a multifaceted agreement, and nothing is going to be on the table until we see the Strait of Hormuz open and the Iranians agree that they have to turn over the highly enriched uranium and that they can't have a nuclear program.
The president today asked in an interview if there's a red line Iran could cross that would cause the U.S. to fully restart this war.
Well, a deal that wasn't going to be good for us is the line, ultimately, because, I'm playing it out and we're going to see, and that's what I do.
Still so much uncertainty. Mary Bruce joins us now. Mary, what's the latest on negotiations over Iran's nuclear program?
Yeah, well, Lindsay, even if the two sides finalize this short-term deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, those tough nuclear negotiations are still to come. The White House tonight is stressing that what comes next is entirely up to President Trump and what he decides to do.
Mary Bruce from the White House. Thanks so much, Mary.
Thank you.
Tonight, investigators are trying to understand what sparked a deadly gas explosion in an apartment building in Dallas. Firefighters battling that blaze for hours as the search is underway for the missing. Trevor Ault with the latest.
Tonight, a search for victims after an explosion turned a downtown Dallas apartment building into a towering inferno.
There just an explosion, literally right by my apartment. Oh my God.
Fire officials say they were responding to a report of a gas leak, and by the time they arrived 2 minutes later, the fire had engulfed the building.
We have gone from rescue mode to recovery mode. We are still actively in recovery mode, and we may be in this mode for the next 2 to 4 hours.
Windows blown out, debris seen blanketing a nearby roof and covering the street.
Everything that wasn't blown to pieces is on fire there. And the concern we have this afternoon with school being out is whether anybody else was inside.
Resident Alta Deli Boys in shock.
We lived there. We lost our pets. We lost everything we owned. I had 3 rescue cats, Marley, Koi, and York, and we had 2 dogs.
Nearly 100 firefighters on the scene, flooding the building.
That is 2 stories worth of building, and it looks like it has just flattened down there.
The blast shaking the entire neighborhood.
It felt like the commotion was everywhere because the whole apartment was shaking. I feel very blessed that me and my sister were able to make it out.
Such devastation. Trevor Alt joins us now. So, Trevor, do we know what caused this explosion?
Nothing concrete yet from investigators, Lindsay. This is still a very active scene, but we have heard from fire officials that they are looking into the cause, including a possibility that a contractor had struck a gas line. But at this point, what we have confirmed, though, is those fatalities in this explosion. Lindsay.
All right. Trevor Alt for us. Thanks so much, Trevor. Now to Washington State's deadliest industrial accident in modern history. Crews have recovered the remains of 6 of the 9 workers missing. Meanwhile, concerns are growing about the water supply and air quality. ABC's Melissa Dunn is on the ground with the latest.
Tonight, crews are working to keep toxic chemicals out of the water supply. 11 presumed dead at the Nippon Dynawave paper mill in Longview, Washington. That circular tank held 900,000 gallons of toxic fluid, and more than half of it spilled out when it blew up Tuesday during a shift change. New images from inside the plant show what the corrosive chemicals in the contamination zone did to a firefighter's heavy rubber boots. Teams are using water to dilute the chemicals to a safe pH level and then flushing that water through a system of ditches and into the Columbia River.
Just a quarter mile away from the plant right here, we do see federal officials testing waterways just like this.
Yesterday, officials said they found 12 dead fish in the river, but insist there's no danger to the public. As recovery efforts continue, we're learning more about 52-year-old Gilbert Bernal, an electrician at the plant, from his youngest brother, Juan.
He was a great man. Never got angry, never seen him angry. He was the best brother I ever had.
Now, Melissa Dunn is there in Longview, Washington, outside the paper mill. And we know that there are water quality concerns at this point. What's happening?
Yes, Lindsay. So the EPA is actually testing the water quality at nearby ditches, making sure they flush out any possible contamination before it reaches the city's local water supply.
And you mentioned that white liquor is at the heart of this disaster. What exactly is that made of, and what made it so dangerous in this case?
Yes, Lindsay, the white liquor is essentially made up of a mixture of chemicals like sodium sulfite, and it is used to treat different things like cardboards, papers, tissues, essentially to color it. And that's what's used here in this plant. But what makes it so dangerous is how hazardous this chemical can be. If exposed to it, it can cause severe burns and irritation to the lungs. Lindsay?
All right, Melissa Dunn for us. Thanks so much, Melissa. Now to that deadly Ebola outbreak, surging to more than 1,000 cases in less than 2 weeks. A team of U.S. health officials are now racing to Kenya to set up a treatment facility for Americans exposed to the virus. Here's our Faith Abube.
Tonight, the Trump administration deploying a medical team of at least 30, including doctors and nurses, to Kenya to staff a temporary quarantine site for Americans abroad exposed to the Ebola virus. A senior administration official saying it's much better to transport the Americans to, quote, a facility that takes a shorter transport time as opposed to flying them back all the way to the United States. But tonight, that plan facing fierce criticism from some medical experts. Dr. Ashish Jha calling it, quote, a huge strategic mistake.
American doctors, American nurses are a major force in bringing these things to a close. Now you're telling them, by the way, if you get exposed, you can't come home.
This as the deadly Ebola outbreak rages in parts of Central Africa. In less than 2 weeks, reported infections now topping 1,000 cases. New video showing medical supplies arriving in eastern Congo. At least 11 African nations bordering the DRC are currently at high risk. And with the World Cup now just 2 weeks away, today the U.S., Canada, and Mexico announcing a joint effort to screen and monitor travelers coming from Ebola-affected countries.
And Lindsay, so far, the only American who has tested positive for that Ebola virus is that medical missionary who was flown to Berlin last week for medical treatment. And as for that 50-bed American quarantine facility in Kenya, officials say it's already up and running. Lindsay.
Faith, thank you. A former CIA officer is accused of fraud. Prosecutors say he had hundreds of gold bars worth more than $40 million stashed in his home. David Rush is also accused of lying about his military and academic credentials for nearly 2 decades. Here's Stephanie Ramos.
Tonight, tough questions for the CIA after a former officer with top secret security clearance was accused of stashing $40 million in gold bars in his house and lying about his credentials for nearly 2 decades. The FBI seizing 300 gold bars along with $2 million in cash and 35 luxury watches from the Virginia home of David Rush. Prosecutors say he had requested the gold for work-related expenses, but they did not identify the work project he allegedly claimed would require so much currency.
The agency has always used what we call alternative funding sources. Finding out that someone was using gold bars to actually make payments, which obfuscates the CIA's role in it, is not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is that he was able to get away with it.
An affidavit alleges Rush lied about his background since joining the CIA around 2009, claiming he had a degree from Clemson University, a master's from Rensselaer Polytechnic, and had been a Navy pilot. But an investigation found no record he attended either school or had been a pilot.
The whole idea that somebody could make up where they went to college, pretend to have a pilot's license, but they don't have a pilot's license. I mean, those are just such obvious glaring holes.
Prosecutors say Rush served in the Navy until 2015, but then falsely claimed he was in the Navy Reserve and stole $77,000 in military pay he was not entitled to.
Our thanks to Stephanie. The Justice Department has launched a criminal probe into writer E. Jean Carroll, who successfully sued President Trump for sexual abuse and defamation. Let's bring in ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky. Aaron, what can you tell us about this investigation?
It's the latest, Lindsay, in President Trump's retribution campaign, turning the power of the Justice Department onto his perceived enemies like James Comey, Letitia James, Jack Smith. Now E. Jean Carroll, the writer who sued Trump for sexual abuse and defamation and won nearly $90 million in civil judgments. Sources told ABC News federal prosecutors are investigating whether Carroll committed perjury when she testified there was no outside funding for her lawsuits. The billionaire Reid Hoffman did pay some of her legal fees, though a federal appeals court determined there was no evidence Carroll was personally involved in securing the funding. Lindsay, it would be unusual for the Justice Department to prosecute a standalone charge of perjury like this, though President Trump's retribution campaign itself is unprecedented. Lindsay?
All right, Aaron, thank you. And for more on this, we're joined by ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer. Brian, thanks so much for joining us. This case is rather unusual. Why does it center on the funding of her legal fees and not the sexual assault allegations that were the focus of the civil cases?
Yeah, Lindsay, that might be the $90 million question, because when you're making the argument that something is perjury, it's not just that it is a false statement under oath, it is one that is material. And you would imagine if we're going to try to make the strongest argument, whether you're going to try to appeal the civil verdict or try to have a criminal investigation, you would want the issue to be material to the decision as to whether or not the credibility of E. Jean Carroll was flawed in the sense of, was she sexually assaulted or did she defame Donald Trump? Not whether or not she obtained money from an outside source for her legal fees. That doesn't really turn on the issue as to whether or not her credibility is a problem here.
What would the DOJ need to prove perjury in this case if the focus right now is how she paid her legal fees?
I think that'd be very difficult. I think the layperson and most people who think about perjury only think about the first few words of the definition, that being a lie under oath. But it can't just be that. It has to be a lie under oath to a material issue. And the way the law defines a material issue is one that a jury might consider when deciding whether or not someone is guilty or not, liable or not, as is the situation here in the civil case. And I won't say like what I believe it is, but I'll put it this way. What is material here when you're asking the question, was E. Jean Carroll sexually assaulted, or did Donald Trump defame her? I don't believe any court, and we've already heard it from the appellate court in this case for the civil matter, would see that this issue as to whether or not or how her legal fees were paid was material to the case. Also, she might not even known who had paid all of her legal fees, as it appears that some of that issue was resolved in the appellate case.
Politically targeted prosecutions have failed in the past, as we've seen. Take James Comey, Letitia James, for example. Do you think that the DOJ will be successful with this case?
I think it depends on your definition of successful. I think successful in the same regard as to those three individuals you have there on the page with me there. You might find indictments. You might have enough there to have a one-sided presentation of the case to say that this is a material issue. It could have gone to her credibility and not really flesh that out. And I think like we saw with Letitia James as well as James Comey, we could see an indictment and then a case quickly unravel once it sees the daylight and arguments are made either in motions or leading up to the judge asking those hard questions of where's the material issue here? Hasn't this already been litigated?
So what are the next steps here?
So this is just an investigation. The next steps could be that we hear nothing. The next step could be that we hear about an indictment. What the DOJ presumably is going to do is going to look into the statements that were made at the trial, see what arguments can be made as to whether or not those false statements were done knowingly and intentionally, and whether or not it was material. Then they'll see if they can impanel a grand jury, present the information, and presumably go for an indictment. But we might not see any of that. We might only see the end result of whether or not there's an indictment or not when this investigation continues.
Brian Buckmeyer, thank you so much as always. The United States Supreme Court sided with a black Mississippi death row inmate who claimed racial bias in his trial. Attorneys for Terry Pitchford say that potential black jury members were unfairly dismissed ahead of his murder trial. The ruling reversed a lower court ruling that reinstated Pitchford's death sentence. Pitchford was originally convicted of a 2004 murder of a grocery store owner during a robbery. Pitchford's conviction will be invalidated, but he can be retried by the state. A traffic cop in Florida has gone viral. A woman was pulled over for allegedly driving while using a phone in her right hand. The problem is she doesn't have a right hand. 3 months later, the charges have been dismissed. Here's ABC's Victor Okendo.
Tonight, this Florida traffic stop going viral. A Palm Beach sheriff's deputy seen pulling over a woman for holding a phone in her right hand while driving.
You drove past me holding the phone with your right hand, manipulating that phone.
But stunningly, driver Katie Thomas holds up her right arm, revealing she doesn't have her right hand.
So
obviously not. So you want to just call this a day? Or?
I don't want to call it a day. You had a hand manipulating.
You just said my right hand.
Well, I thought I told you your right hand. Did you or not have your phone on your hand?
I did not.
You did not have your phone in your hand?
I did not.
Hand to God, you didn't have your phone in your hand.
Hand to God.
The incident happening in February. Despite her denials,
so you're going to receive a citation?
Katie is still given a $116 traffic ticket for texting while driving. But this week, the case was dismissed.
So we had court this morning and dismissed. I cannot make up the reason behind why it was dismissed. It says lack of evidence.
The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office says law enforcement officers are required to make decisions based on observations made in real time, and motorists have the right to contest citations. Lindsay?
Victor Okendo for us. Thank you. The outdoor clothing company Patagonia is suing drag queen and environmental activist Patagonia for trademark infringement. Patagonia alleged that Patty is appropriating the brand after filing a trademark application for the name, and that this move will, quote, continue to confuse consumers. Patty accused Patagonia of trying to erase an activist in a betrayal of Patagonia's core mission. In a complaint, the company said this move reflects Patty's departure from discreet use of a persona to engage in activism to launch a wide-ranging commercial enterprise. Wynn Wiley has gained millions of online followers for their environmental activism and performing as Patagonia. Last year, Patty raised more than $1 million for various nonprofits while hiking 100 miles in full drag. Joining us now to break it all down, Mr. Mike Muse, ABC News contributor and Sirius XM host. All right. So why is this important as far as this dispute between Patagonia and Patagonia?
This goes to, I mean, it's very confusing even when you say it, right? When it's written, you can tell there's a difference.
Right.
But when you say it, there is something different. I think this comes down to freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and then intellectual property and trademark. So when you get to freedom of expression, what the law typically allows is for satirists, activists, and politicals to use parody in order to promote a message, to which Patagonia is actually doing. But when you get into trademark and intellectual property, that's where the rubber begins to meet the road. And the reason why is when this began to escalate, when Patty actually filed a trademark in order to do merchandising. Once you commercialize your activism, once you commercialize your parody, that's when the subject of trademark and intellectual property comes into question. And does that create brand confusion? Because, Lindsay, they are doing the same thing.
So Patagonia, the company, said in a statement that this is not about challenging anyone's identity or right to advocacy, protest, or creative expression, and added, quote, "The last thing we wanted was a legal fight with someone who shares our values, but we must protect our business and employees." So Patagonia is now activating these 3 million followers trying to get this lawsuit dismissed. Why are we talking about this? What's the overall implication, the ramifications beyond this individual lawsuit?
Lindsay, we are in the backdrop of this moment of anti-capitalism, anti-elite, anti-billionaire establishment class. And this is why I believe that this case is garnering so much attention and attraction. It's David versus Goliath, right? And everyone always wants David to win, and everybody's always rooting for the underdog. So Patagonia is being perceived as an underdog in that this billionaire class, the elite, the capitalism is trying to silence the voices of the small, if you will. And I think this case dovetails right into where we are in the social conversation of it. But I think it's also a teachable lesson, no matter what the outcome of this case may be, is that we all have to be mindful of when our parody, satiricalness, and activism then gets into the commercialized space, and then when we begin to monetize our parodies and our activism.
A lot of people are going to be following to say, oh, well, maybe I can do something similar. So we will see how it all plays out. Thank you so much for breaking it down for us. As always, Mr. Mike Muse in the house. Thank you. The clock is ticking in a race to save miners in a flooded cave in Laos. 5 survivors were found alive after more than a week underground. Rescuers navigated narrow, muddy tunnels and rising water to try and bring them out safely. 2 more members of the group are still unaccounted for. ABC News has learned that Trump administration officials have pushed the U.S. Treasury to design a $250 bill. The bill is set to have the president's portrait and signature if legislation is passed to create the new currency. It would be the first time a living person has appeared on U.S. currency in more than 150 years. As of now, federal law explicitly states only deceased people can appear on United States currency. Coming up, the rise of prediction markets is raising concerns about insider trading. Our Aaron Katursky gives us a behind-the-scenes look at a team of digital detectives investigating. Plus, as the New York Knicks head to the finals, we'll examine the sky-high ticket prices by the numbers. And Anne Hathaway opens up about a debilitating medical condition she experienced. Those details coming up. Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk some basketball. For the first time since 1999, the New York Knicks are in the NBA Finals. They will face either the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder or the San Antonio Spurs, with Game 1 tipping off June 3rd on ABC. Excitement is high, and perhaps unsurprisingly, so are ticket prices, with hefty prices just to get into Games 3, 4, and 6 at the Garden. Let's look at these ticket prices by the numbers, shall we? As of 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time today, the lowest get-in price on TickPick for any finals game at Madison Square Garden was just over $3,300 for a Game 4 ticket in the upper bowl. Should the finals reach Game 6, the cost to get into that game was listed at just over $4,500. As for those who prefer to sit closer, say in the sections behind the team benches or VIPs, it would cost them more than $70,000 for any ticket there. Now compare these prices to last season's finals between the Thunder and the Indiana Pacers, where the average ticket price was reportedly $1,147, according to Front Office Sports. Several hundred tickets, though, won't cost anything at all. The Knicks are donating at least 500 free tickets to underprivileged youth connected to the Garden of Dreams Foundation. And should the finals need a Game 6, it would be held in New York on June 16th, just hours after a FIFA World Cup match at MetLife Stadium. It would be a big sports day in the tri-state area, but in any case, you can catch every game of the NBA Finals from your home at no additional cost on ABC. Joining us now is ESPN investigative reporter TJ Quinn. TJ, thanks so much for coming on.
Sure. Good to be with you.
And we just talked about those skyrocketing NBA Finals prices. You've extensively reported on the controversy surrounding the FIFA World Cup ticket prices. What is driving these prices just so outrageously high?
It's supply and demand. That's simple. You've got a very small supply and you've got extraordinary demand. For the World Cup, the world's most popular sport, once every 4 years, these stadiums only hold about 80,000. It's a lot of people who want to get in. For the Knicks, it also may be a once-in-a-lifetime chance for a lot of fans to see them. What happens is the market really is driven by with the area that we live in. You've got an estimated 400,000 millionaires in the New York metropolitan area. That's who you're competing with when you're getting onto one of the websites trying to buy tickets. You've got dynamic pricing in use, meaning that the old system of a ticket is put out on the market at face value, and then somebody buys it and puts it on a secondary market. Well, dynamic pricing means that now the algorithm recognizes immediately what the demand is. And if you've got tens of thousands of people trying to get the same ticket, the algorithm is going to recognize that and jack that price up immediately. What's changed is that rather than going directly, those immediate sales to the consumer, and then they end up on a secondary market, what promoters and leagues have figured out is, why don't they make that money themselves? Why would they let a broker suddenly jack up the price and make profit when it could go to the league, to the team, or in the case of music, the artist? If you've tried to buy tickets to Beyonce or Bruce Springsteen, you've seen this happen. And now you've got New York, where you've got the first time, like you said, since 1994, and you've got so much money in this area, the financial capital of the world. It creates a perfect storm. But one other quick thing is that the supply, that's where part of the question is, and that's where fans get upset, because Madison Square Garden holds about 19,800 people. Not all those tickets go on sale at once. Many of them, thousands, are held back for the leagues, for the teams, for the players. They're sold in different tiers. Same with FIFA. You've got multiple organizations that are getting their own ticket allotments. So many of those tickets are gone, and you're actually competing for a smaller share of those seats than may appear obvious.
So what's the answer to this question? Why don't they keep the money? Why allow that third party?
Well, that is what they're doing with this. They're selling it through their own sites. FIFA's president, Gianni Infantino, when he tried to defend what's going on with FIFA tickets, said, hey, this is simply the way the American system works. The same amount of money is probably going to be spent on these tickets, whether it's through secondary markets or whether it's through the teams, the leagues themselves, selling through dynamic pricing. It's going to be met by demand. Now, the argument for it is that, well, when demand drops, the price drops. It's the same reason you can go see the Mets tonight for $12. It's just not quite the same demand for 3 Knicks games that may be the last chance somebody is going to see. And you're competing with very wealthy people who want to get into that arena.
So specifically on the World Cup, just to put it into perspective, how much more expensive are tickets in this year's World Cup compared to the last few editions?
It's hard to even compare it. I mean, the top ticket in the final in 2022 was under $2,000, but it was also in Qatar. So you've got a very different local population that was going to see it. It's a much smaller area. I've been in Doha. You don't have the same sort of competition as you do within the United States. But you've also just seen an explosion in demand for events like this.
TJ Quinn, we thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Coming up, the new app being launched for Trump's accounts, meant to help children save money as they grow, and our in-depth look at the fight to curb insider trading on prediction markets. Welcome back to Prime. Here's a look at the stories making headlines right now. American and Iranian negotiators say they're closing in on an agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The agreement would reopen the strait over the course of 60 days, and the U.S. would pull back a blockade on Iranian ports. The deal would need to be approved by President Trump. The agreement wouldn't provide any restrictions on Iran's nuclear program. A gas explosion led to a massive fire in an apartment complex in Dallas. Officials have confirmed there are fatalities, but haven't provided any details as their investigation continues. There were also multiple people sent to local hospitals. Firefighters were able to get the fire under control in about 3 hours. A key inflation indicator is higher. The Bureau of Economic Analysis says that prices have increased 3.8% since this time last year. They estimate the areas seeing the biggest increases are gasoline and other energy sources, housing, and utilities. The federal government is rolling out a new app for Trump accounts aimed at helping children save money as they grow. This summer, the federal government will begin making a $1,000 contribution to the accounts of any child born between 2025 through 2028. Anyone with a child under 18 can open a Trump account. Nearly 6 million families have already signed up for the new accounts. And still ahead, insider trading on prediction markets has become a real problem, and now those companies and the government are fighting back. We have a look at the agency in charge of investigating. Welcome back, everyone. This week, federal prosecutors arrested a Google engineer accused of using confidential company information to win more than $1 million on Polymarket. It's the latest allegation of insider trading on prediction markets, where Americans are spending billions of dollars wagering on culture, sports, politics, and war. Tonight, Aaron Katursky has an in-depth report on how the markets and their tiny federal regulator are trying to keep up.
On prediction markets,
culture, entertainment, movies, songs.
Americans are betting on everything from sports to politics to culture.
There's markets on Kalshi for everyone.
Sites like Kalshi and Polymarket let you wager on everything from Taylor Swift's wedding date to the chances of an Iran nuclear deal. From the frivolous to the weighty, these markets are now facilitating billions of dollars in bets or trades each week. But critics say they're vulnerable to insider trading.
No one should be able to use insider information to line their own pockets.
It is ripe for abuse.
Suspiciously well-timed trades on politics, the Nobel Prize, and the war in Iran beg the question, are these markets too easy to cheat?
What's at stake in this room? The integrity of our markets.
For the first time, Kalshi let reporters into the room where a team is trying to identify trades based on inside information.
It's hard to police in all markets. How do you find the neighbor, the cousin, the person who fielded a tip from an insider and they're trading?
Robert Denault leads Kalshi's digital detectives, working on those questions around the clock.
There's a lot of Red Bull consumed in this office, almost alarming amount.
These are alerts that your system is generating or that are coming in from the public?
No, these are alerts that our internal systems, our internal algorithms are running over the market and generating as potential insider trading or spoofing or market manipulation.
For Kalshi, integrity is a key part of its message.
And so here, click into a specific alert.
Kalshi says it launched more than 200 investigations last year and has already surpassed that many in the first half of 2026. The results have been slow.
What about your enforcement actions? How many have you taken? So far, 5.
5 doesn't sound like a lot.
It's only been less than 2 years that we've been a pretty prolific trading exchange, and we already have enforcement actions to point to, and trust me, there's more to come.
One of those cases involved betting on the winner of Survivor.
Welcome to the final tribal council for Survivor 50.
It's a show that airs months after it tapes, making it a ripe target for people aware of the outcome. Online sleuths noticed bettors on Kalshi had predicted the winner with remarkable accuracy.
I think there's a lot of reporting on Reddit and other websites about what might unfold on a particular season of Survivor, and so it drives traders to make particularly confident trades, but it doesn't mean that they necessarily have material non-public information.
Kalshi says it has referred dozens of potential insider trading cases to the federal agency that regulates the markets, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, run by Chairman Michael Selig, an avowed advocate of prediction markets.
So rather than having, some elites in, ivory towered, we have an aggregated wisdom of the crowds, and that's really valuable for everyone in our country.
Selig sits alone on a commission that typically has 5 seats, giving him unusual authority over these markets. And he's fighting states to keep that power at the federal level.
Why don't you want the states involved?
Well, the states police and oversee the casinos and the gaming, and that's all an entertainment business. We don't oversee entertainment.
He echoes the position of President Trump, who posted on social media this week it is critically important that the CFTC's exclusive authority over prediction markets is maintained. Mike Selig, CFTC chairman and respected by all, is doing a great job.
People are saying there's insider trading in this or that, and if the CFTC is doing its job, it would have caught this in 5 minutes. But a lot of these people have not given us any evidence.
Critics question whether his tiny office can keep pace with the staggering growth of prediction markets.
Do you have the horses?
There's a lot of news out there. We have the team we need to get the job done, and that's not really a concern.
The commission just brought an enforcement action against a Google employee charged with using inside information to make fraudulent Google-related bets on Polymarket. Before that, the commission had only brought one case this year.
But only one case brought so far, right?
Well, it takes a long time to bring an action. We have many that are in the pipeline. We have subpoenas out, of course.
So it sounds a little bit like there is some just inherent risk with these prediction markets.
You have the same dynamics as in any markets. There's always a risk that there could be somebody trading on insider information, but it's our job as regulators to take legal action there.
Please do not block his way.
Federal prosecutors last month charged a special forces soldier of using classified information to profit from the U.S. military raid that ousted Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. The soldier has pleaded not guilty. Polymarket said in a statement that it surveils and monitors for insider trading and other illegal activity consistent with other markets and has made nearly 100 referrals for suspected insider trading to authorities.
What happens to us spiritually when every moral question in this country just becomes a market?
The drumbeat of high-profile allegations of insider trading is already turning heads in Washington, eliciting a rare source of bipartisan cooperation.
There's a lot of momentum on both sides of the aisle on this.
The Republican-led House Oversight Committee last week launched a probe into the growing pattern of insider trading activity on prediction market platforms, and more than a dozen bills would limit how prediction markets operate.
I think their survival is at stake.
Dustin Gauker's a podcaster and blogger who covers prediction markets. He says Kalshi and other platforms now see insider trading as an existential threat.
I follow everything Kalshi does, and there's been a real change in how they approach this issue. 6 months ago, they were barely talking about insider trading. Now this is a huge part of their messaging.
It wasn't always that way.
Shane Copeland is the founder and CEO of Polymarket.
What's cool about Polymarket is that it creates this financial incentive for people to go and divulge the information to the market.
Not even that long ago, we are seeing people who are involved in prediction markets maybe advocating for insider information.
Call it the prediction market paradox.
The better the information is, the more useful it is to everything in the world, whether that's economic, whether it's geopolitical. But then we get to this world where we're actually having real-world cases of insider information being used in prediction markets. Why would I want to trade against people if they know the answers, right?
Kalshi says it welcomes regulation, and its own rulebook already addresses some of the concerns raised by lawmakers, like a ban on athletes and political candidates from using the platform.
It's a new product. I think with new products, it makes sense for the public to wonder, how does the system handle this new thing? The answer is never ban the thing. It's figure out how to properly regulate it the right way and make sure that the markets are safe.
Our thanks to Aaron Katursky for that. Coming up, we sit down with the stars of the hit Hulu show Deli Boys, what to expect from the new season that drops today. And a canoe race takes a wild turn. See what happens when this unexpected visitor crashes the party. The port-side surprise for a canoe crew in Monterey Bay. Scientists make major progress toward a cure for hepatitis B. And why one small town says, hold the phone. They're not ready to give up their payphone. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. Check out this wild surprise for a couple of canoeists. This outrigger canoe team in Monterey, California got quite a shock when an overly enthusiastic sea lion suddenly leapt out of the water and onto their canoe. It didn't last long, though. All the spots in the canoe were already taken, and surprisingly, the paddlers just kept on going as if nothing had happened. A first-of-its-kind drug for hepatitis B is being called a functional cure by researchers. It lets some patients stop treatment without showing signs of the dangerous liver virus. Hepatitis B spreads through contact with blood or other bodily fluids. The new drug, nicknamed Bepi, attacks hepatitis B by binding to its genetic components, suppressing viral replication. That's according to GSK, the pharmaceutical company that paid for 2 global studies and developed the drug with Ionis Pharmaceuticals. Studies show about 1 in 5 patients given the experimental drug saw their virus reduced to levels low enough for the immune system to keep it in check. The results were published in the New England Journal of Medicine. A stunning upset at the French Open. World number 1 Yannick Sinner collapsed in the Paris heat before falling in the second round to 56th-ranked Juan Manuel Sorrentino, sending shockwaves through the tennis world. Back in January, extreme heat also caused problems for Sinner at the Australian Open. Western Europe is undergoing record heat. The French Open allows for 10-minute rest periods when temperatures reach 86 degrees, with play suspended at 90 degrees. Proof of the heat's toll, Jakub Mensik had just won a nearly 5-hour match, then collapsed and was taken out in a wheelchair. The Devil Wears Prada 2 star Anne Hathaway is opening up about a debilitating visual impairment she had for a decade.
And I didn't realize it was actually taxing my nervous system.
Hathaway told the New York Times podcast that she had an early onset cataract, a clouding of the lens in one of her eyes, and was essentially half blind for 10 years, starting in 2013 when she was just 30 and was filming the movie Interstellar.
I wound up getting surgery, and I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until I could finally see like the full spectrum.
ChatGPT is no longer the funding king. Anthropic announced it's raised $65 billion at a $965 billion valuation, which now puts it ahead of ChatGPT's parent company, OpenAI, which was last valued at about $100 billion less. Anthropic is seeking to expand to meet growing demand for its chatbot, Claude, and to scale its products. Both Anthropic and OpenAI are widely expected to go public as soon as this year. Once a stalwart across this country, there are now fewer than 100,000 payphones in the U.S., which is why this one has become a surprise attraction. In the small town of Mineral Springs, Arkansas, this payphone hanging on the wall of the Walnut Hill Communications building still works if you have a quarter.
We are stuck way back, and that's fine. We're real happy just doing us around here.
The Walnut Hill Communications manager says they keep the phone up as a public service. Hulu's hit series Deli Boys is back for a second season, and this time the Dar family is facing some questionable decisions, lots of cash, and chaos. One of the stars holds together a criminal empire run by 2 not-so-qualified heirs, while Todd France, a British-Pakistani South London gangster, puts more pressure on the family business. Our Andrew Dimbert sat down with the 2. Let's take a look.
We're here to meet with the proprietor of this esteemed establishment.
I know who you are. You guys are legends around these parts.
Hey, it ain't easy, pimp. Come with me.
Oh my God. Why do I always have to hold people at gunpoint to get anything done?
All right, Borna Jagannathan and Tan France, join us now. Thank you so much for being on. So what's it like?
Such a great introduction.
I know.
Yeah?
It was.
Oh,
that was solid.
That was
really
solid.
Thank you, thank you. So what's it like, this new season stepping right back into the chaos where it all left off?
It feels like we never left set, and everyone got dumber.
That is true.
Right? Everyone got dumber.
But richer, too.
Richer and dumber. More money, more problems, more stupidity.
That's right.
And
her outfits got even better, which is shocking because they were already so good.
Shout out to Kaylee Brenneman.
Yeah.
And it is a funnier season, and it is a great second season to build on a show that was called one of the top comedies of last year.
Yeah. And speaking of building this season, I believe you have an expanded role as Lucky. Tell us about that.
Lucky's a very complicated gangster. She doesn't trust many people. She's very trigger happy. All her exes are probably not around, literally. So she meets, Max Sugar, who's played brilliantly by Fred Armisen.
Icon.
Icon. And there is this amazing chemistry between us, just 2 weird, unhinged gangsters getting together.
Take me to when you first read the script for the new season with all the chaos and changes, so to speak. Was there a moment where you thought, oh boy, this could only happen on Deli Boys.
Deli Boys was already so chaotic, I didn't know it could get any more insane. I read the thing thinking, this can't be how this is going. You just don't know what to expect, but it got funnier and funnier.
Yeah.
My character Zubair took a massive twist, like he was so violent and aggressive.
Yeah.
Now suddenly he's zen and found major peace in his...
Reformed.
Majorly reformed.
Yes.
And every character got funnier.
This show in particular, just you are laughing from beginning to end. It just bumps you. The format of it, it bumps you from joke to joke.
You're not going to be able to stop watching the show. It's such a good season.
And it's also like, it's an absurd.
Yeah.
It's like, it's an absurdly funny show. That's how, it's Sopranos meets The Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Okay, I love both of those shows. So, Tan, I'm also told that you were a bit of a fashion icon.
Oh, just
so what's
dabbled in it.
What's it like now going from that to this comedy role and kind of combining the two, really?
Well, no, I want to make it very clear. There's no fashion for my character this season. Like, he's in a jumpsuit. He's in prison.
But you also had some, like, feet. You also did something
to make it better?
Yeah.
I did. Look, how do you know that? I did make it more fitted. I put something on underneath so it looked a little more chic.
Fitted.
It feels so nice
Fitted
to do.
Orange.
Isn't that not what they're doing in prison?
Mm-hmm.
It did feel so nice to do something so different to what I typically do. I'm not playing a gangster on any other program I'm doing. I am the fashion guy on unscripted shows. So to get to just play
a straight guy,
a straight violent man who's desperate to kill her character Lucky is a dream.
Yes.
We got to do a fight scene in season 1 that was my absolute dream, and now season 2 I'm with Saga, who's one of the other leads on the show. Incredible. Loved it.
Would you say in your daily lives you more have things under control, or are you a little bit like your characters with the chaos and confusion?
Well, we had lunch very recently, and I know Borna very well. We are very good friends outside of the show, but I don't think I really understood how chaotic her life is or her mind is.
Yeah.
I am the ultimate type A person. I know everything that's happening at all times, and I've got a list for everything.
A calendar.
Not even on your phone?
Nope.
She is my most type B friend.
And the best is I just don't care.
All right, Tan, Porna, thank you so much for coming here. I can't wait for this new season. Thanks for stopping by. And be sure to check out Deli Boys Season 2 that's now streaming on Hulu.
Our thanks to Andrew Dimbert for that conversation. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Lindsay Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you so much for streaming with us.